What scientists uncovered in the Chernobyl Forest astonished the world. On April 26, 1986, at precisely 1:23 a.m., a routine safety test failure at the Chernobyl nuclear power plant led to an explosion, releasing vast amounts of radioactive material into the atmosphere. In the aftermath, officials established a sprawling exclusion zone around the plant, transforming it into a symbol of human error and environmental disaster. Thousands abandoned their homes, and once vibrant villages fell silent, overtaken by nature as roads were reclaimed by forests. For decades, the Chernobyl exclusion zone served as a haunting reminder of the consequences of technological negligence. Scientists, disaster experts, and the public debated the future of this contaminated land. Conventional wisdom suggested it would remain a radioactive wasteland, with wildlife facing inevitable extinction. However, a recent team of researchers from various universities set out to explore the deserted forests of Chernobyl. They strategically placed remote cameras to gather data over several months, hoping to determine if life had returned. To their astonishment, the initial findings revealed a thriving ecosystem. Instead of just a few resilient species, they documented wild boars, wolves, roe deer, foxes, and lynxes in numbers far exceeding expectations. Reports of brown bears, absent from the area for years, further surprised them, and even European bison, once extinct in much of Eastern Europe, began to roam the outskirts of this abandoned zone. The most shocking conclusion was that the presence of humans, or, more precisely, the lack thereof, was having a greater effect on wildlife than the radiation itself. One researcher described it as a testament to nature's resilience. Even radiation didn't stop these animals from coming back once we left them alone. Those words clashed with everything people believed for decades, that radiation's ongoing presence would poison the land forever. Yet here was a real-life demonstration that life not only persists, but, in some cases, flourishes when freed from direct human interference. Local park wardens recalled a time when farmland, tractors, and scattered homes dotted the region. Today, those fields are meadows strewn with saplings, and forest growth has accelerated, turning once cultivated land into new habitats. Scientists discovered entire pockets where lynxes roam without fear and wild boars built dens. Recon flights captured aerial views of rolling green landscapes that, while still contaminated, had largely regreened under nature's hand. This is not to say the radiation is harmless. Some populations bear traces of genetic anomalies, and certain hotspots remain dangerously radioactive, unfit for any human presence. However, there are scattered pockets where animals seem to navigate around or adapt to these contaminated enclaves. It's an odd twist, explained a field ecologist. We don't want to imply radiation is good, but the forced absence of humans has allowed ecosystems to rebound in ways we never anticipated. Their findings challenged typical narratives about nuclear disasters and led to a broader reflection. Could rewilding, or leaving some habitats untouched, be beneficial despite past contamination or industrial damage? One team member pointed out that the exclusion zone has, in a sense, become Europe's largest inadvertent wildlife sanctuary. Wolves, near extinct in many parts of Europe, found a stronghold here, free from hunters. The deer population soared, providing natural prey for predators like lynxes and wolves. For the first time in centuries, an apex predator dynamic re-emerged, reminding the scientific community of what intact ecosystems can look like. Media outlets picked up these startling findings, fueling public interest. Journalists posed questions. How can animals thrive in a place still deemed unfit for humans? Might we have overestimated radiation's lingering impact, or is it more about underestimating how drastically human activities displace wildlife? During interviews, scientists stressed caution. They warned that while the rebounding wildlife is real, it's happening in the shadow of severe environmental hazards. The half-life of certain isotopes is measured in decades, even centuries. Some animals might accumulate radioactive elements in their bodies, and the real long-term biological impacts on species remain under study. It's not a simplistic story of everything being great, one researcher said. Rather, it's a lesson in how resilient life can be when left to its own devices, yet the symbolic message remains powerful. Tour operators offering strictly regulated visits to the Chernobyl zone reported that travelers grew fascinated by glimpses of foxes trotting across abandoned roads or the distant howls of wolf packs echoing in empty villages. Photographers captured hauntingly beautiful images of deer grazing amid the skeletons of old apartments with vines creeping up peeling wallpaper. Local Ukrainian conservation groups seized the momentum, petitioning for the partial transformation of the exclusion zone into an official wildlife refuge. They argued that, with proper monitoring and safeguards, the area could become a living laboratory where scientists examine the interplay between radioactivity and ecology. International experts supported the idea, seeing it as a unique case study bridging nuclear science, wildlife management, and habitat restoration. Still, controversy brewed. Some critics worried that glamorizing wildlife success might trivialize the underlying tragedy or mislead the public into thinking radiation is irrelevant. We must balance the facts, a nuclear safety advocate remarked. Yes, animals have returned, but pockets of danger remain. The problem is far from solved. Others believe the region could be studied for potential models in restoring other post-industrial wastelands worldwide. Perhaps the biggest takeaway from these discoveries lies in the nuance. Nature's resilience is extraordinary but not absolute. In Chernobyl's forest, we see a stark demonstration of how quickly wildlife can adapt when humankind steps away. Without roads, logging, or active human presence, ecosystems gain space to blossom. Radiation poses a threat, yet the vacuum left by humans ironically grants these animals a chance to reclaim territory, reorganizing the food chain in ways not seen for generations. Global environmental circles buzz with discussions on what if we recognize more no-go zones worldwide, not necessarily from nuclear catastrophes, but as rewilding corridors. Some pointed to demilitarized areas or abandoned farmland as potential spaces for nature to reassert itself. They called it the Chernobyl lesson, illustrating how hands-off management, even if forced by an unfortunate event, could yield surprising ecological revivals. For local communities, hearing that the exclusion zone teemed with large fauna stirred conflicting emotions. Many families had once thrived there, and some old inhabitants longed to return. Instead, they discovered that wild boars and wolves now roamed their ancestral fields, while heritage homes crumbled, visited only by foxes and eagles. The area had turned into a paradox, a living wilderness rooted in a tragic past. And so, the region remains a testament to both human error and nature's unyielding push forward. The latest scientific expedition only heightened curiosity. Chernobyl was no longer just a cautionary tale of meltdown and radiation. It was also a place that taught us about renewal, about how life refuses to surrender even under radioactive skies. News of the thriving wildlife spread, inspiring countless people to look deeper into how societies manage environmental disasters. Were there hidden positives in other corners of the world? Would someday the exclusion zone become a recognized nature reserve with restricted but acknowledged wildlife tourism? The Ukrainian government's stance remained cautious, valuing safety above all, yet conservation continued, balancing ecology, technology, and the fragility of our world. In the end, what scientists discovered in the Chernobyl forest wasn't just a miracle of animals returning. It was a deeper revelation about human absence. It confronted the notion that our presence is always beneficial. Maybe we are both guardians and intruders, capable of stewardship yet also of inflicting damage more lasting than the fallout from a nuclear core. The site stands a living reminder that while radiation can be lethal, so can unregulated human interference. Let Chernobyl's regrowth be a lesson to us all, urging reflection on how we share this planet with countless other living beings. The forest stands as a silent witness to the tragedy of 1986, its stillness occasionally interrupted by the call of a lynx or the rustle of a young bison exploring territory long unseen. Scientists diligently monitor and collect data, weaving together an evolving narrative of rebirth. In this serene environment, surrounded by quiet pines and the remnants of old homes, nature patiently crafts its next chapter. Human activity often devastates fragile ecosystems, leading to widespread deforestation and the introduction of invasive species. Such actions disrupt habitats, pushing countless animals toward vulnerability and extinction. Roads and factories fragment wildlife ranges, while pollution poisons rivers and aquatic life. Overhunting in some areas depletes key predator populations, destabilizing entire food chains. Ironically, in heavily contaminated regions like Chernobyl, the absence of human interference has allowed nature to rebound more robustly than anticipated. Freed from constant disruption, wildlife populations have flourished, with wolves, lynxes, and rare bird species reclaiming lost territory. The lack of logging and development has enabled forests to regenerate, creating safer habitats for animals. This pattern suggests that even after disaster, areas can become havens when humans withdraw. It challenges our assumptions about radiation and environmental harm, showcasing nature's remarkable resilience. By stepping back, we allow ecosystems to heal and adapt on their own terms. Ultimately, these findings remind us that nature seeks renewal, and even in crisis, life can flourish if we permit it. What do you believe is the most effective step each of us can take to limit our ecological footprint and support such remarkable recoveries?